The silver ship moved slowly through the dark space around the Kepler 442 star system. Its metal hull gleamed under the distant starlight as it passed by floating rocks and ice chunks. Inside the ship, Commander Vextella looked at the glowing screens in front of her with great interest. Her skin was like clear crystal, and blue light pulsed through it when she felt curious or excited. The ship was called Cosmic Dawn, and it belonged to the Zephyrian people. They had been exploring this part of space for many years, looking for new worlds to add to their growing empire. Commander Vextella had seen many strange things in her long career, but today something felt different. Commander called Navigator Kethlos from his seat across the control room. His crystal skin flashed yellow with worry. The sensors are picking up something odd from the fourth planet. Vextella walked over to look at his screen. The planet they were studying was supposed to be empty and dead. Their records showed it was just a ball of rock with no life at all. But now the sensors were showing energy readings that did not make sense. "What kind of energy?" she asked. "The computer says it looks like power plants and cities," Kethlos replied, his voice full of confusion. "But that cannot be right. We checked this system 50 years ago. There was nothing here." A science officer, Eulandra, looked up from her station. Her crystal body was glowing bright green, which meant she was very excited about something. "Commander, I am reading organized settlements across the entire planet. There are also what look like farms and mining operations." Vextella felt her own skin pulse with bright blue light. This was impossible. The Zephyrians had very good records of every world in this area of space. They had been exploring and mapping systems for hundreds of years. A whole civilization could not just appear from nowhere. "Take us closer," she ordered, "but be careful. If there really is someone living on that planet, we need to know who they are." As the Cosmic Dawn moved toward the fourth planet, the crew could see it better through their viewing screens. It was a beautiful world with blue oceans and green landmasses. White clouds swirled around it in perfect patterns. But what made them all stare and wonder were the lights scattered across the dark side of the planet. Cities, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They glowed with warm light and stretched across the continents like glittering jewels. They were huge, covering areas that would take days to walk across. Others were smaller, but still clearly filled with life and activity. "This is incredible," whispered Eulandra. "Look at the organization of those settlements. They are not scattered randomly. Someone planned this very carefully." Vextella studied the planet below them. The cities were connected by straight lines. That could only be roads or transportation systems. Between the cities, she could see vast areas of organized farmland. Everything was neat and orderly, showing a level of planning that impressed even her experienced eye. "Commander," said Kethlos, his voice shaking with excitement. "The energy signatures are matching something in our database." "What civilization?" Vextella asked. Kethlos looked at his screen again, as if he could not believe what he was seeing. "Human." The control room fell completely silent. Every crew member stopped what they were doing and stared at the navigator. Human civilization had been destroyed over 150 years ago. Everyone in the galaxy knew this story. A terrible plague had spread through all human worlds, killing everyone. The humans had been completely wiped out. There were no survivors anywhere. "That cannot be correct," Eulandra said slowly. "Run the scan again." Kethlos checked his instruments several times. Each time the answer was the same. The energy patterns, the technology signatures, even the way the cities were built, everything matched the old records of human civilization. "It is definitely human," he said finally. "But how is this possible?" Vextella had been exploring space. For over 300 years, she had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. The humans were supposed to be extinct. Every schoolchild in the galaxy learned about the great human plague that had ended their species. It was one of the most famous disasters in galactic history. "Maybe some humans escaped the plague," suggested Eulandra. "Maybe they came here and survived." "For 150 years?" Kethlos asked. "Without any contact with the outside galaxy? Without any help or trade?" The more they thought about it, the more impossible it seemed. But the evidence was right in front of them. The planet below was clearly inhabited by humans, and they were not just surviving, they were thriving. "Commander," said Communications Officer Zalmira from her station, "I am picking up radio signals from the planet. They are using human language. Can you understand what they are saying?" Vexilla asked. "Some of it. The language has changed over time, but it is still clearly human. They are talking about daily life things, work schedules, weather reports, family news. It sounds like a normal, peaceful civilization." Vexilla walked to the center of the control room and looked out at the planet below. She could see the lights of the cities twinkling like stars. Each light represented thousands or maybe millions of humans who had somehow survived when everyone thought their species was dead. "How many people do you think are living down there?" she asked. Yulandra checked her sensors carefully. "Based on the size and number of cities, I would guess at least 50 million. Maybe more." 50 million humans? Vexilla repeated slowly. 50 million people who have been living here for over a century, completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The implications were staggering. If humans had survived and built a civilization this advanced, what did that mean for the galaxy? The other species had divided up the old human territories among themselves. They had taken human worlds and human resources, thinking no one would ever claim them again. "Commander," said Kethlos, "what are your orders?" Vexilla thought carefully. This discovery would change everything. The galactic government would need to know immediately. But she also knew that some species would not be happy to learn that humans still existed. The humans had been powerful before the plague, and some species had been glad to see them gone. "Send a message to High Command," she ordered. "Tell them we have made a discovery that will require immediate attention. But be careful about the details. We need to make sure the right people get this information first." "What about the humans?" asked Yulandra. "Should we try to contact them?" Vexilla looked at the planet again. The humans down there had no idea that they were being watched. They were living their lives peacefully, thinking they were alone in the universe. Soon, their quiet existence would be over forever. "Not yet," she said. "First, we need to learn more about them. We need to understand how they survived and what kind of society they have built. This could be the most important discovery in galactic history." As the cosmic dawn continued to orbit the planet, the crew worked to gather as much information as possible. They recorded the human radio signals, mapped the cities, and studied the technology they could detect. Everything they learned made the discovery even more amazing. These humans had not just survived, they had created something remarkable. Their cities were clean and efficient. Technology was advanced, but seemed to work in harmony with the natural environment. Most surprising of all, they seemed to be living in peace with each other. "Commander," said Yulandra, after several hours of study, "I do not think these humans are like the ones we remember from the old records." "What do you mean?" "The old humans were always fighting wars and destroying their environments. These humans seem different. Everything they have built shows cooperation and careful planning. They have been isolated for 150 years, but they have not destroyed themselves or their world." Vexilla nodded slowly. She had been thinking the same thing. These humans had faced the ultimate test, complete isolation with no hope of rescue. Instead of falling into chaos and destruction, they had built something beautiful. The discovery of the lost human colony would soon shake the entire galaxy. But none of them could imagine just how much these remarkable survivors would change everything they thought they knew about what it meant to be human. The message from the Cosmic Dawn reached Zephyrion High Command in less than 6 hours. Within minutes of receiving the report, emergency meetings were called across the capital city of Zeftolan. The crystal towers of the government buildings pulsed with urgent red light as officials rushed to discuss this impossible discovery. Grand. Humans alive and thriving on a lost world for over 150 years. The implications were enormous. Every major decision the galaxy had made since the human plague would need to be reconsidered. "Send Ambassador Nixvara immediately," she ordered her staff, "and assemble a full diplomatic fleet. We need our best people on this." Ambassador Nixvara was the most skilled diplomat in the Zephyrian Confederacy. She had successfully negotiated peace treaties with 12 different species and had prevented 3 major wars through careful diplomacy. If anyone could handle first contact with a lost human civilization, it would be her. The ambassador's ship, the Harmony Bridge, left port within hours. It was followed by 5 other vessels carrying scientists, translators, and cultural specialists. They also brought military escorts, just in case. No one knew what these isolated humans might be like after 150 years of separation from galactic civilization. During the 3-day journey to the Kepler 442 system, Nixvera studied everything known about human culture. The old records painted a picture of a species that was both brilliant and dangerous. Humans had been great inventors and explorers, but they had also been warriors who fought terrible wars among themselves. The question is, she told her staff, during a planning meeting, are these humans the same as the ones we remember, or has isolation changed them? Dr. Pelvaxis, the expedition's chief anthropologist, had been studying human culture for decades. Isolation can change a species in many ways, he said. Sometimes it makes them more peaceful. Sometimes it makes them more aggressive. We will not know until we meet them. Meanwhile, on the planet below, the human colony was dealing with its own shock. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the command center of New Haven City, watching the alien ships take positions. Around their world, he was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes who had spent 30 years protecting the colony from various dangers. But he had never expected to face visitors from space. How many ships are there now? He asked Lieutenant Katie Walsh, his communications officer. 8 that we can see, she replied, studying her screens. They are staying in high orbit, just watching us. Morrison had been born on the colony world. His parents had been among the original settlers who arrived on the ship Pioneer's Dream over 140 years ago. He had grown up hearing stories about Earth and the other human worlds. But those places had always seemed like fairy tales to him. This world was the only home he had ever known. "Sir," said Sergeant Tom Bradley from the sensor station, "they are broadcasting something? It is not any human language I recognize." Morrison walked over to listen to the alien transmissions. The sounds were strange, musical tones mixed with clicking noises that seemed to follow some kind of pattern. It was clearly intelligent communication, but completely unlike anything humans had ever heard. "Try to respond," Morrison ordered. "Use basic mathematical patterns. If they are smart enough to build spaceships, they should understand math." First attempts at communication were clumsy and slow. The humans broadcast simple number sequences, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The aliens responded with the same sequences, proving they understood. Then both sides tried more complex mathematics, square roots, prime numbers, basic geometric shapes. It took hours. But gradually, a simple communication system developed. The aliens seemed patient and careful, never making threatening moves. They just stayed in orbit and worked on building understanding between the two species. Ambassador Nixvera was fascinated by the human responses. "They are being very careful," she told her staff. "They are not panicking or attacking. They are trying to communicate properly." "That's a good sign," said Dr. Pelvaxis. "It suggests they have a stable society with good leadership." On the planet, Morrison was thinking the same thing about the aliens. "They could have attacked us by now if they wanted to," he told his staff. "The fact that they are trying to talk suggests they are not hostile." The breakthrough came on the 3rd day. The aliens transmitted a series of images, simple pictures that showed mathematical concepts, and basic physics, then chemistry. The humans responded with their own images, showing that they understood and could build on the ideas. Dr. Linda Hayes, the colony's chief scientist, worked day and night to decode the alien messages. She was a brilliant woman who had spent her life studying the mysteries of their adopted world. Now she faced the ultimate puzzle, understanding the minds of an alien species. "I think I am starting to understand their number system," she told Morrison during one of their daily meetings. "They seem to use base 12 mathematics instead of our base 10. That explains why some of their patterns seem strange at first." Communications became more complex as both sides learned more about each other. The aliens, who called themselves Zephyrians, were able to transmit basic images of their home world and their crystalline bodies. The humans responded with pictures of their own world and their Settlements. Katie Walsh spent every waking hour working on the translation project. She had always been good with languages, but this was unlike anything she had ever encountered. The Zephyrian language seemed to be based on musical tones and light patterns as much as sounds. "I think I understand why they use crystals in their technology," she told Morrison. "Their bodies are partly crystalline, so they naturally think in terms of light and harmonic frequencies." The real breakthrough came when the aliens transmitted a message that was clearly an invitation. They wanted to meet face to face. The message included coordinates for a location in orbit where both sides could send representatives. Morrison called an emergency meeting of the colony's leadership council. New Haven City's government was based on democratic principles, and major decisions were made by vote. The question of whether to meet the aliens was the most important decision they had ever faced. "We have been alone for 150 years, said Council Leader Betty Adams. It's an elderly woman who remembered the stories of the old days. "Maybe it is time to learn if we really are the last humans in the universe. But what if they are dangerous?" asked Security Chief Bob Turner. "What if this is some kind of trap?" Morrison listened to the debate for hours. Some council members were excited about the possibility of contact with advanced alien civilization. Others worried about the risks of revealing too much about their defenses and technology. Finally, Morrison made the decision that would change everything. "We will meet with them," he announced. "But we will be careful. We will send a small delegation to the meeting point, and we will be ready to defend ourselves if necessary." The meeting was arranged for neutral space between the planet and the alien fleet. Morrison would lead the human delegation, accompanied by Dr. Hayes and Katie Walsh. The aliens would send Ambassador Nick Savara. With two of her staff members, as the human shuttle lifted off from New Haven City, Morrison looked down at the world he had spent his life protecting. The city spread out below him like points of light, each one home to thousands of people who had built good lives in isolation. Soon, that isolation would be over forever. The alien ship that met them in space was beautiful. It was made of the same crystalline material as its builders, and it seemed to glow with inner light. As the human shuttle docked with the alien vessel, Morrison felt the weight of history on his shoulders. "Remember," he told his team, "we are not just representing ourselves. We're representing all of humanity. Whatever happens here will affect us. Every person on our world." The airlock opened, and Morrison got his first look at an alien being. Ambassador Nick Savara was tall and elegant, her crystalline body shifting between different colors as she moved. When she saw the humans, her body pulsed with gentle blue light. "Welcome," she said, in carefully learned human words. "We are honored to meet you." Morrison stepped forward and offered his hand in the traditional human greeting. "The honor is ours," he replied. "We have been waiting a long time to learn if we were alone in the universe." As the two representatives shook hands, both species knew they were witnessing a moment that would be remembered forever. The lost human colony had been found, and now the real work of building understanding between two very different civilizations could begin. The first meeting between humans and aliens took place in a small room aboard the Zephyrian ship. Ambassador Nick Savara had prepared the space carefully, with soft lighting and comfortable seating that could work for both species. The air was clean, and warm and quiet music played in the background. Captain Morrison sat across from the alien diplomat, Dr. Hayes and Katie Walsh on either side of him. The Zephyrians had brought their own team of specialists. Everyone was nervous, but also excited about this historic moment. "We have many questions," Ambassador Nick Savara said, her crystalline body glowing with soft blue light. "We thought all humans were gone. How did you survive?" Morrison took a deep breath. This was the story he had heard from his grandparents. The story that every child in the colony learned in school. "Our ship left Earth in 2387, he began. "We were part of a mission to establish the first permanent human settlement beyond the solar system." He explained how the pioneer's dream had carried 50,000 colonists on a one-way journey to Kepler-4 for 2D. The ship had been equipped with everything they needed to build a new civilization, advanced technology, genetic libraries, and the best minds of their generation. "We were supposed to be the first of many colony ships," Morrison continued. "Earth was planning to send more people to join us, but then the messages stopped coming. Dr. Hayes opened a tablet computer and showed the aliens the colony's historical records. The last transmission from Earth came 147 years ago, she said. It was a warning about some kind of plague that was spreading through human space. After that, we heard nothing. The Zephyrians listened in amazement as the humans told their story. The colony had waited for years for more ships from Earth. They had sent messages back toward human space, but never received any replies. Eventually, they had accepted that they were alone. "We thought we were the last humans in the universe," Morrison said quietly. "We had no choice but to build a life here and hope that somehow, someday, other humans might find us." "Ambassador?" Nixvera felt her body pulse with deep purple light, a sign of great emotion among her people. "You have been alone for 150 years, she said. "How did you survive? How did you build all of this?" Morrison smiled for the first time since the meeting had begun. "We had good people and good leaders, but mostly we had no choice. Had to. Make it work or die trying." Over the next several hours, the humans explained how their society had developed. The early years had been incredibly difficult. The colonists had to learn how to live on a world that was beautiful but completely alien to them. They had to figure out how to grow food, build shelter, and create the basic infrastructure needed for survival. "The first generation worked themselves to death building our foundation," Morrison explained. "They knew that if they failed, there would be no second chance. No rescue ship was coming."
Oh.
Dr. Hayes showed the aliens pictures of the early settlements. Simple buildings made from local materials, basic farms carved out of wilderness, and small workshops where the colonists had learned to manufacture everything they needed from scratch. "We could not waste anything," she said. "Every resource was precious. Every person had to contribute. We learned to work together in ways that humans had never done before." The Zephyrians were fascinated by the human approach to survival. Most species they knew would have fallen into chaos and fighting when faced with such challenges. Humans had done something different. "You had disagreements," said Dr. Pelvaxis, the Zephyrian anthropologist. "You must have had conflicts over resources and leadership." "Of course we did," Morrison replied. "But we learned early that fighting would kill us all. We developed ways to solve problems peacefully. We had to." Katie Walsh explained how the colony's government had evolved. "We started with the leadership structure from the original ship," she said. "But over time, we developed something new. A system where everyone has a voice, and major decisions are made by consensus." The aliens were amazed by this. In their experience, democratic systems usually broke down under pressure. But the humans had made their democracy stronger, not weaker, in the face of extreme challenges. "We visit your cities tomorrow, Ambassador," Nixvera said. "We want to see how you live." The next day, the alien delegation traveled to the surface of the planet. They landed at New Geneva, the colony's diplomatic and cultural center. The city was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. The buildings were tall and graceful, made from a combination of metal, glass, and local stone. But they seemed to grow from the landscape rather than being imposed upon it. Gardens and parks were everywhere, and the air was clean and fresh. Colony Administrator Lisa Chen met them at the landing pad. She was a woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a confident manner. Her great-grandfather had been one of the original ship's engineers. She had grown up hearing stories of the early days. "Welcome to our world," she said to the aliens. "We are honored to show you what we have built." Lisa led them through the city on foot, explaining how everything worked. The buildings were designed to use minimal energy, with solar panels and wind generators built into their structure. The transportation system was based on quiet electric vehicles that moved through underground tunnels. "We learned that we could not afford to damage our environment," Lisa explained. "This world is our only home. We had to find ways to live that would not destroy it." Engineer Paul Rodriguez joined them for a tour of the city's infrastructure. He was a cheerful man who clearly loved his work. He showed them the water treatment plants that cleaned and recycled every drop of water used in the city. He explained. The waste management systems that turned garbage into useful materials. "Nothing is wasted here," he said proudly. "Everything is recycled or reused. We have a saying, use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. The aliens were particularly impressed by the underground transportation network. Quiet trains moved people and goods through tunnels that connected all the major cities. The system was fast, efficient, and completely clean. How do you power all of this? Asked Dr. Pels. Bax's Paul smiled and led them to a viewing platform overlooking the city's power plant. But instead of the dirty, noisy facilities the aliens expected, they saw something beautiful. Large crystalline structures rose from the ground, glowing with soft light. We discovered that this planet has unique crystal formations, Paul explained. They store and amplify energy in ways we never imagined. We learned to work with them instead of against them. The power system was completely integrated with the planet's natural processes. The crystals absorbed energy from the sun, wind, and even the planet's magnetic field. They stored it efficiently and released it as needed, without any waste or pollution. This is remarkable, said Ambassador Nixvera. You have created technology that works with nature instead of destroying it. Lisa nodded. We had to learn this. On Earth, humans often fought against nature and tried to control it. Here we learned to be partners with our environment. Tour continued through the residential areas where families lived in comfortable homes surrounded by gardens. Children played in parks while their parents worked in community centers and small businesses. Everyone they met was friendly and curious about the alien visitors. Your people seem happy, observed Dr. Pelvaxis. There is no visible poverty or conflict, or not perfect, Lisa admitted. We have problems like any society. But we learned long ago that we survive together, or not at all. Taking care of each other is not just kindness, it is survival. The aliens spent 3 days touring different parts of the colony. They visited farms that produced abundant food. Using innovative growing techniques, they saw factories that manufactured everything from clothing to computer components, all powered by clean energy and designed to minimize waste. They met teachers who educated children in both traditional subjects and the unique skills needed for life on their world. They talked to artists who created beautiful works inspired by their adopted planet. They visited medical centers where doctors had developed treatments for diseases that were unique to their environment. How many people live here now, Ambassador? Nixvera asked during their final meeting. Almost 12 million, Lisa replied. We have grown carefully, always making sure we can provide for everyone before we expand. The Zephyrians were stunned. 12 million humans had not just survived in isolation, but had created a thriving civilization that seemed to work better than most societies in the galaxy. You have achieved something remarkable, Ambassador Nixvera said. You have built a society that is both advanced and sustainable. This is very rare in the galaxy. Morrison, who had been quiet during much of the tour, finally spoke up. We did what we had to do. We are not special, and we are just humans who refuse to give up. But the aliens knew better. These humans had accomplished something that most species thought was impossible. They created a civilization based on cooperation, sustainability, and mutual respect. They had proven that survival did not require conquest or domination, as the alien delegation prepared to return to their ship. They knew that news of this discovery would change everything. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not extinct, and that they had spent their isolation becoming something extraordinary. The news of the human discovery spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every major civilization knew that humans had survived their supposed extinction. The reaction was not what Ambassador Nixvara had hoped for. On the Kethmori homeworld, Emperor Vostok slammed his clawed hand on the council table. His red eyes burned with ancient hatred as he read the report from his spies. Impossible, he growled. We made sure the human plague reached every world. There should be no survivors. The Kethmori Empire had been humanity's greatest enemy before the plague. They were a warrior race that believed only the strong deserved to survive. When the human plague had appeared, many suspected the Kethmori had helped it spread, though this was never proven. My lord, said General Krixmar, his second-in-command, our scouts confirmed the reports. There are millions of humans on that world. They have built cities and seem to have advanced technology. Emperor Vostok's scales shifted to a darker red, a sign of extreme anger. Then we will finish what the plague started. Prepare the war fleet. These humans will not be allowed to spread their disease across the galaxy again. Meanwhile, in the golden towers of the Altarian Trade Federation, Chairman Luxadel saw opportunity where others saw problems. The Altarians were merchants and traders who cared more about profit than politics. Think of the possibilities, he told his board of directors. Humans were always innovative. If they have survived 150 years in isolation, they must have developed new technologies. Trade with them and make enormous profits. But what if they refuse to trade? Asked Director Coinville. Then we make them an offer they cannot refuse, Luxadel replied with a cold smile. We control the shipping lanes around their system. Without our permission, they cannot trade with anyone else. The Centauri Republic took a different approach. They were scientists and researchers who saw the humans as fascinating specimens to study. Dr. Primaxis, the head of their xenobiology department, was already planning research expeditions. We must study them immediately, he told the Republic Council. How did they survive? What genetic changes have occurred? Are they still the same species, or have they evolved into something new? We need living samples, agreed Counselor Laborium. At least 1,000 subjects for proper analysis. We can offer them medical care in exchange for voluntary participation in our experiments. But not everyone in the galaxy saw the humans as enemies or opportunities. Alliance. A group of smaller civilizations sent messages of welcome and friendship. They offered to help protect the humans from those who might wish them harm. Back on the human colony world, Captain Morrison watched the galaxy's reaction with growing concern. The communications arrays were picking up transmissions from dozens of different species. Some sounded friendly, but others were clearly hostile. Sir, reported Katie Walsh from the communication center, we are receiving what appears to be a demand for surrender from something called the Kethmori Empire. They are giving us 30 days to prepare for inspection and relocation. Morrison, read the message with growing anger. The Kethmori were demanding that all humans submit to their authority for processing. They claimed that humans were a genetic threat to galactic security and must be controlled. What about the others? He asked. The Altarians want to establish exclusive trading rights, Katie replied. The Centauri Republic is requesting permission to conduct medical studies on our population, and there are at least 6 other species, making various demands. Administrator Lisa Chen called an emergency meeting of the colony's leadership council. The main conference room in New Geneva was packed with representatives from every major settlement on the planet. The mood was tense and worried. We knew this day might come, Lisa said to the assembled leaders. We always hoped that when we finally met other civilizations, they would be friendly. But it seems the galaxy is not as peaceful as we hoped. Council Elder Betty Adams, now in her 80s, spoke up from her seat at the front of the room. My grandmother was on the original ship. She told me stories about the old days when humans fought wars with alien species. She said the galaxy was a dangerous place then. Seems nothing has changed. Security Chief Bob Turner had been studying the military reports. The Kethmori fleet is already moving toward our system, he said grimly. They have over 200 warships. Our defense force has maybe 30 ships, and most of those are converted cargo vessels. What about the Zephyrians? Asked someone from the back of the room. Will they help us? Lisa shook her head. Ambassador Nixvara is trying to negotiate on our behalf, but the Zephyrian government is divided. Some want to help us, but others think we are too dangerous to support. The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted to try diplomatic solutions. Others believed they should prepare for war. Few suggested that maybe they should accept one of the offers for protection, even if it meant giving up their independence. Dr. Rachel Stone, the colony's leading scientist, had been quiet during most of the discussion. She was a brilliant woman who had spent her career studying the unique properties of their world. Finally, she stood up to speak. We have survived 150 years by working together, she said. We have built something beautiful here. I refuse to let anyone destroy it without a fight. But what can we do? Asked someone. We are outnumbered and outgunned. Rachel smiled grimly. We have advantages they do not know about. We understand this world better than anyone. We have technology they have never seen, And we have something they do not have. What is that? Morrison asked. We have nothing left to lose, Rachel replied. This is our home. This is where our children were born and where our ancestors are buried. We will not give it up without a fight. The council voted unanimously to resist any attempts to force them from their world. They would try diplomacy first, but they would prepare for war if necessary. Over the next few weeks, the situation grew worse. The Kethmori fleet continued to approach their system. The Altarians began setting up blockades around the trade routes. Centauri Republic sent scout ships to study the planet from orbit. Morrison found himself in charge of preparing their defenses. It was a job he had never wanted, but one he could not refuse. He worked with Dr. Stone and engineer Paul Rodriguez to assess what weapons and defenses they could build. We have the crystal power systems, Paul pointed out. If we can modify them, we might be able to create some kind of defensive array. The crystals respond to harmonic frequencies, Rachel added. I've been studying them for years. I think there is more to them than we realize. Meanwhile, the human population began to prepare for the possibility of war. But they did not panic or fall into chaos. Instead, they organized themselves with the same careful planning they had used to build their civilization. Factories that normally made consumer goods began producing weapons and defensive equipment. Farmers organized to ensure food supplies would continue even during a conflict. Teachers prepared to move their students to safer underground facilities. Every person in the colony, from the youngest teenager to the oldest elder, volunteered for some kind of service. They would not give up their freedom without a fight. Captain Morrison stood in the observation deck of the Defense Command Center, looking out at the peaceful cities below. Children were playing in the parks, unaware that their world was about to change forever. He thought about his own children and grandchildren, and wondered what kind of world they would inherit. Sir Katie Walsh approached him with a communication. Tablet. We have received a final demand from the Kethmori Empire. They will reach our system in 3 days. They are demanding unconditional surrender. Morrison read the message carefully. The Kethmori wanted all humans to submit to genetic screening and relocation. Those deemed acceptable would be allowed to live as servants in the Empire. The rest would be eliminated as genetic threats. What is your response, sir? Katie asked. Morrison looked out at his world one more time. Cities gleamed in the sunlight, monuments to human determination and cooperation. Millions of people lived there, in peace and prosperity, the result of 150 years of careful building and sacrifice. Tell them no, he said quietly. Tell them that we are not the same humans they remember. We have built something here that is worth protecting. If they want to take it from us, they will have to fight for it. As the message was sent out, across the galaxy, the human colony prepared for the greatest test of their existence. They had survived plague, isolation, and the challenges of building a civilization from scratch. Now they would find out if they could survive the galaxy's attempt to destroy what they had built. The next few days would determine whether the lost human colony would continue to thrive, or whether their remarkable story would end in tragedy. But one thing was certain, they would not go down without a fight. The Kethmori war fleet arrived at the edge of the Kepler 442, system like a storm cloud blocking out the stars. 200 massive warships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons. Emperor Vostok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, and smiled at the sight of the small human planet ahead. At last he growled to his officers. We finish what we started 150 years ago. On the human colony world, warning sirens echoed across every city. Captain Morrison stood in the underground command center that had been built beneath New Geneva. Around him, dozens of officers and technicians worked at their stations, coordinating the defense of their world. His enemy fleet count confirmed at 200 ships, reported Lieutenant Katie Walsh. They are moving into attack formation. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy. The humans had managed to assemble a defense fleet of 35 ships, mostly converted cargo vessels with improvised weapons. Against the Kethmori war machine, they seemed as fragile as soap bubbles. All civilian populations are in the underground shelters, reported Security Chief Bob Turner. Everyone is as safe as we can make them. Dr. Rachel Stone worked frantically. At her research station, for weeks, she had been studying the planet's crystal formations, trying to understand their full potential. She was convinced that the crystals held the key to their survival, but she was running out of time. The harmonic frequencies are almost aligned, she called out to Morrison. I need just a few more minutes. You may not have a few more minutes, Morrison replied. Watching the enemy ships draw closer, high above the planet, Commander Steve Parker led the small human defense fleet. He was a skilled pilot who had spent years patrolling the system's asteroid belt, hunting pirates and raiders. Now he faced the greatest challenge of his career. All ships, this is Parker. He broadcast to his fleet. Remember, we are not trying to win a fair fight. We are trying to buy time for the planet. Use every trick you know. The first battle began in the asteroid field at the edge of the system. Parker's ships used their knowledge of the local terrain to their advantage, hiding behind rocks and using the asteroid's magnetic fields to confuse enemy sensors. The Kethmori had never fought in this system before. Their ships were designed for open space combat, not the close quarters fighting that Parker forced on them. Several enemy vessels were destroyed by flying debris when they tried to follow human ships through dangerous asteroid clusters. It's impossible, snarled General Krixmar from the Kethmori command ship. These humans are fighting like cornered animals. Then we will treat them like animals, Emperor Vostok replied. All ships, ignore the small vessels. Target the planet directly. The main Kethmori fleet moved past Parker's ships and headed straight for the colony world. The human defense fleet followed, picking off enemy ships when they could, but unable. To stop the massive armada on the planet's surface, Colonel Amy Davis coordinated the ground defenses. She had been born in the colony and had spent her entire military career preparing for this moment. Underground bunkers housed millions of civilians, while surface installations prepared to fight the invasion. First wave of enemy ships entering. Atmosphere, reported one of her officers. They are targeting the major cities. All defensive batteries, open fire, Amy ordered. The sky above the colony world lit up with weapons fire. Human missile batteries launched everything they had at the descending enemy ships. Some Kethmori vessels were damaged. Most pushed through the defensive fire and began bombing the cities. But the humans had prepared for this. Most of their important facilities were underground, protected by solid rock and advanced shielding. The surface installations that were being destroyed were mostly decoys designed to waste enemy ammunition. They are falling for it, Amy reported to Morrison. They think they are destroying our infrastructure, but they are just hitting empty buildings. The ground invasion began 3 hours after the first attack. Kethmori soldiers, tall reptilian, warriors with advanced armor and weapons, landed in the cities and began searching for human survivors. They expected to find a terrified population hiding in ruins. Instead, they found a carefully planned resistance. The humans had spent months preparing for urban warfare. Every street corner had been mapped, every building had been rigged with traps, and every citizen knew exactly what to do when the attack came. The Kethmori warriors were brave and skilled, but they were not prepared for this kind of fighting. The humans seemed to vanish into the ground, only to reappear behind enemy lines. Children who looked innocent would lead enemy patrols into ambushes. Elderly citizens would provide information that sent the invaders into dead ends and traps. These humans are not like the ones we fought before, General Krixmar reported to his emperor. They are organized and disciplined. Every civilian is part of their military. Then we kill every civilian, Vostok replied coldly. Burn the cities, leave nothing alive. But as the Kethmori prepared to escalate their attack, something unexpected happened. Deep underground, Dr. Rachel Stone finally achieved the breakthrough. She had been working toward Morrison, she called out excitedly. I have figured it out. The crystals are not just power sources. They are part of some kind of ancient network. What do you mean? Morrison asked, running to her station. The crystals are connected to each other across the entire planet, Rachel explained rapidly. They form a communication and control system. And I think if we can activate them properly, they might be able to do much more than provide power. Dr. Alina Vasquez, the colony's xenobiologist, had been studying the crystals from a different angle. She had discovered that they were not natural formations at all, but remnants of technology left by an ancient civilization. "The crystals are weapons," she announced, her voice filled with excitement and terror. "They were built by some ancient race to defend this planet. That is why they respond to harmonic frequencies. We have been living on a fortress world for 150 years and never knew it. The discovery came just in time. Kethmori were preparing to launch a final assault that would destroy every human settlement on the planet. But as their ships moved into position, Rachel and Alina activated the crystal network. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Every crystal formation on the planet began to glow with brilliant light. The harmonic frequencies that the humans had been using for power generation suddenly amplified and spread across the entire world. In space, Kethmori fleet suddenly found their ship systems shutting down. The harmonic frequencies generated by the crystals interfered with their technology in ways they had never experienced. Weapons stopped working, engines failed, and communication systems went dead. "What is happening?" demanded Emperor Vostok as his flagship drifted helplessly. "Unknown energy surged from the planet," reported his science officer. "It is disrupting all our systems." Within minutes, the entire Kethmori fleet was disabled. 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy floated powerless in space, their crews helpless inside their metal shells. On the planet's surface, the Kethmori soldiers found their weapons and armor equally useless. The harmonic frequencies had neutralized their technology, leaving them stranded on a hostile world with no way to fight or escape. But instead of destroying their helpless enemies, the humans made a choice that shocked the galaxy. Captain Morrison broadcast a message to all the disabled ships. "This is Captain Morrison of the human colony. Your fleet is disabled, but your crews are alive. We offer you medical assistance and safe passage back to your territory. Do not seek revenge, only the right to live in peace." The offer was unprecedented. In galactic history, no species had ever shown mercy to the Kethmori. They were feared and hated throughout the galaxy for their cruelty and aggression. Emperor Vostok could barely believe what he was hearing. "You would spare us after we came to destroy you?" "We are not the humans you remember," Morrison replied. "We have learned that survival does not require the destruction of others. We offer you a choice: leave in peace or stay and learn from us." The gesture stunned not only the Kethmori, but every other species watching the conflict. The Altarians, who had been preparing to seize control of the system, found themselves reconsidering their plans. The Centauri Republic, who had wanted to study the humans, realized they had more to learn from human behavior than from human biology. Ambassador Nyx Vera, who had been watching the battle from orbit, felt her crystalline body pulse with colors she had never experienced before. "Remarkable," she whispered. "They have achieved something no species has ever done. They have won a war without becoming conquerors." For the following days, the human colony provided food, medical care, and repair assistance to their former enemies. Many Kethmori soldiers, seeing human compassion for the first time, began to question everything they had been taught about warfare and survival. Emperor Vostok himself spent 3 days in the human medical facility, recovering from injuries sustained when his ship lost power. He was cared for by Dr. Linda Hayes, who treated him with the same gentle attention she gave to human patients. "Why do you help me?" he asked her one day. "I came here to destroy your people, because you are hurt," she replied simply.